Crystal Palace Football Club is an English professional football club based in South Norwood, London. During the 2012 Euro 13 Football League season, Palace finished fifth and gained promotion to the Premier League through the playoffs. Their home colours are red and blue, although they had adopted a claret and pale blue strip of Aston Villa in their early years. The club was founded at the Crystal Palace in 1905 to introduce a team to the local population, who regularly supported the FA Cup final in sizeable numbers, which was played at the Sports Stadium, in Crystal Palace Park. Failing to gain election to the Football League, Palace instead joined the Southern Football League Second Division, playing home games at the Crystal Palace, inspiration for the club's initial nickname, the Glaziers. Palace won the division and promotion in their first season, and played in the Southern League First Division for the next 15 years. In 1920 the Southern League Division 1 formed the Football League Third Division. Palace won the division and gained promotion to the Second Division, where they spent 4 seasons before suffering relegation to the Third Division South. In 1958 a league reorganisation saw Palace become founder members of Division 4. Over the next 11 years the club moved from the lowest rung of English football to the highest, reaching the First Division in 1969. In 1973 the club modernised its image, changing the nickname from the Glaziers to the Eagles, and ending the 68-year association with claret and blue by introducing the red and blue vertical stripes now associated with the club. The club stabilised itself in the top 2 divisions with successive promotions in 1977 and 1979. The period from 1989 to Euro 91 saw Steve Coppell guide the team to an FA Cup final and third place in the First Division. Palace became founder members of the Premier League in 1992, but were relegated the same season. Palace entered administration in both 2000 and 2010, and are now owned by a consortium of 4. The club achieved promotion back to the Premier League under manager Ian Holloway with a 1-0 win over Watford in the Football League playoffs in May 2013. Crystal Palace initially played their games in the grounds of the Crystal Palace, but the First World War saw them forced to move out, and they enjoyed a number of seasons at both the Herne Hill Velodrome and the Nest. Since 1925, Palace have played their home games at Selhurst Park. They have a fierce rivalry with M23 neighbours Brighton and Hove Albion, with whom they have contested the M23 derby 98 times. They also enjoy rivalry with fellow South London team Millwall. The club's kit is currently made by Avec, a subsidiary of Nike, and the shirt sponsor is GAC Logistics. The club captain and the current player of the year is Mile Jedinak. Edmund Goodman is the club's longest-serving manager, and Jim Cannon has made the most appearances for the club. Peter Simpson is the club's top scorer for both one season and overall, netting 54 and 165 respectively. The highest transfer fee received has been for Wilfried Zaha from Manchester United in January 2013 and the highest paid has been to Peterborough United for Dwight Gale in July 2013. History. The original Crystal Palace Football Club was an amateur team founded circa 1861 and who competed in the first FA Cup, reaching the semi-finals where the team was eliminated by the Royal Engineers. The team disappeared from historical records after a 3-0 defeat to Wanderers in the second round of the 1875 Euro 76 FA Cup. However, this was not the end of an association between Crystal Palace and the FA Cup. In 1895 the FA adopted a new permanent home for the final, at the Crystal Palace. With the owners of the attraction reliant on tourist activity for their income, they sought fresh attractions for the venue, and it did not take long for the idea of forming their own team to play at the ground to occur. Thus a new football club, originally nicknamed the Glaziers, was formed on September 10, 1905 under the guidance of Aston Villa Assistant Secretary Edmund Goodman. The club applied to enter the Football League alongside Chelsea and Southampton, but was the only unsuccessful team of the 3. The club instead found itself in the Southern League Second Division for the 1905 Euro 06 season. The club was successful in its inaugural season and was promoted to the First Division, crowned as champions. In their first season Crystal Palace also played in the midweek United Counties League, finishing runner-up to Watford, and it was in this competition that the club played their first match, winning 3-0 away to New Brompton. Palace remained in the Southern League up until 1914, though one highlight the 1907 shock first-round victory over Newcastle United in the FA Cup. The outbreak of World War I led to the Admiralty requisitioning the Crystal Palace, and the club was forced to move to the home of West Norwood FC, Herne Hill. 3 years later the club moved again to the Nest due to the folding of Croydon Common FC. The club joined the Football League Third Division in the 1920 Euro 21 season, finishing as champions and gaining promotion to the Second Division. Palace moved to the purpose-built stadium Selhurst Park in 1924, the ground the club plays at today. The opening fixture at Selhurst Park was against Sheffield Wednesday, Palace losing 0-1 in front of a crowd of 25,000. Finishing 21st that season, the club was relegated to the Third Division South. Before World War II Palace made good efforts at promotion, never finishing outside the top half of the table and finishing second on 3 occasions. They were less successful after the war, their highest position being 7th, and conversely on 3 occasions the club had to apply for re-election. The club remained in Division 3 South until 1957 Euro 58. A league reorganisation would see clubs in the bottom half of the table merge with those in the bottom half of Division 3 North to form a new 4th division. Palace finished 14th Euro, just below the cut Euro, and found itself in the basement of English football. Their stay proved brief. With Arthur Rowe appointed manager, the 1960 Euro 61 season saw Palace gain promotion. Although Rowe stepped down for health reasons, the promotion proved a turning point in the club's history. Dick Graham and then Bert Head guided the club to successive promotions in 1963 Euro 64 and 1968 Euro 69, taking the club through the Second Division and into the heights of the First Division. Despite surviving in the top flight from 1969 until 1972, the club once again experienced great disappointment. Under the management of Malcolm Allison the club was relegated in consecutive seasons, finding itself back in Division 3 for the 1974 Euro 75 season. It was under Allison that the club became nicknamed the Eagles, and they enjoyed a run to the semi-final of the 1975-76 FA Cup, beating Leeds and Chelsea along the way. Allison was sacked at the end of the 1975 Euro 76 campaign, and it was under Terry Venables' management that Palace was promoted in 1976 Euro 77 and again in 1978 Euro 79 back up to the First Division. The club could not maintain their position in the top tier, however, and was relegated from the First Division in 1980 Euro 81, coinciding with Ron Noadi's takeover of the club. Steve Coppell arrived as manager on June 4, 1984, and under his stewardship and rebuilding the club achieved promotion via the playoffs back to the First Division in 1988 Euro 89. The club followed this up by reaching the 1990 FA Cup final, drawing 3 Euro 3 with Manchester United in the first match but losing the replay 1 Euro 0. The club built on the success of the previous season in 1990 Euro 91 by achieving its highest league finish of third and returning to Wembley to win the Zenith Data Systems Cup. The club beat Everton for Euro 1 in the final, its only cup win to date. The following season saw star striker Ian Wright leave the club for Arsenal. Palace finished 10th, allowing the club to become a founding member of the FA Premier League in 1992 Euro 93. The club sold Mark Bright to Sheffield Wednesday the following season, but failed to rebuild the squad adequately, and Palace struggled to score throughout the season. The club found itself relegated with a record 49 points. Steve Coppell resigned and Alan Smith, his assistant at the club, took over. His first season saw the club win the First Division title and gain promotion to the Premier League. Their stay on this occasion proved eventful. On January 25, 1995 Palace played Manchester United at Selhurst Park, in which Eric Cantona was sent off. He was taunted by Palace fan Matthew Simmons, and retaliated with a flying kick. Cantona was sentenced to 2 weeks in jail, reduced to 120 hours community service on appeal. Simmons was immediately banned from Selhurst Park, and found guilty on 2 charges of threatening Cantona. More was to follow in March, when Chris Armstrong was suspended by the FA for failing a drugs test. On the field, Alan Smith guided the club to the semi-finals of both the FA Cup and the League Cup, but league form was a concern and Palace once again found itself relegated, finishing 4th from bottom as the Premier League reduced from 22 to 20 clubs. Smith left the club and Steve Coppell returned as technical director in the summer of 1995, and through a combination of the first-team coaching of Ray Lewington and latterly Dave Bassett's managership, Palace reached the playoffs. Palace lost the final in dramatic fashion, Steve Claret scoring a last-minute goal for Leicester City to win the tie 1-0. The following season saw Coppell take charge as first-team manager when Dave Bassett departed for Nottingham Forest in early 1997. The club was successful in the playoffs at the second time of asking when the club defeated Sheffield United in the final at Wembley. This stay in the Premier League was no more successful than the previous 2. And in true yo-yo club fashion the club was relegated back to the First Division for the 1998-99 season. This season also saw the club plunged into administration when owner Mark Goldberg was unable to sustain his financial backing of the club. The club emerged from administration under the ownership of Simon Jordan, and Steve Coppell left the club, replaced by Alan Smith for a second time. The club flirted with relegation in Jordan's first season, 2000-01. Smith was sacked in April and Steve Kember managed to win the 2 remaining fixtures that would guarantee survival, Dougie Freedman scoring the winner in a 1-0 victory over Stockport in the 87th minute on the final day of the season. Steve Bruce was appointed manager for the 2001-02 season. A good start to the season gave Palace hope for a promotion challenge, but Bruce attempted to walk out on the club after just 4 months at the helm to take charge of Birmingham City. After a short spell on gardening leave, Bruce was eventually allowed to join Birmingham City, succeeded by Trevor Francis, who had ironically been his predecessor at Birmingham. Under Francis, Palace finished mid-table for 2 successive seasons, and Francis left to be replaced by long-serving coach Steve Kember. Kember guided Palace to victories in their opening 3 games of the 2003-04 First Division campaign, which put Palace at the top of the table, but he was sacked in November after a terrible loss of form saw the team slip towards the relegation zone. Ian Dowie was appointed manager and guided the club to the playoffs, securing promotion with a 1-0 victory over West Ham. Again Palace could not maintain their footing in the top tier and was relegated on the last day of the season after drawing at local rivals Charlton Athletic. Jordan was unable to put the club on a sound financial footing after 2008, and the club was placed in administration once again in January 2010. The Football League's regulations saw the Eagles deducted 10 points, and the administrators was forced to sell key players including Victor Moses and Jose Copyright Fonte. Survival in the Championship was only secured on the final day of the season after a memorable 2-2 draw at Sheffield Wednesday, which was itself relegated as a result. During the close season CPFC 2010, a consortium consisting of several wealthy fans successfully negotiated the purchase of the club. Led by Steve Parish, the vocal representative for a consortium of 4 that included Jeremy Hosking and Martin Long. Crucially, CPFC 2010 also secured the freehold of the ground, the consortium paying tribute to a fans' campaign which helped pressure Lloyds Bank into selling the ground back to the club. The consortium swiftly installed George Burley as the Eagles' new manager. However, a poor start to the season saw the club hovering around the bottom of the table by December. On January 1, 2011, after a 3-0 defeat to Millwall, Burley was sacked and his assistant Dougie Freedman named caretaker manager. Freedman was appointed manager on a full-time basis on January 11, 2011, with former Charlton boss Lenny Lawrence as his assistant and Tony Pupovic as first-team coach. Palace edged up the table and by securing a 1-1 draw at Hull City on April 30, the club was safe from relegation with 1 game of the season left. Freedman departed to manage Bolton on October 23, 2012, and in November 2012 Ian Holloway became the club's manager. He guided Palace to the Premier League after an 8-year absence by defeating Watford FC. Won a Euro-0 in the Championship playoff final. On October 23, 2013, Ian Holloway left his post as manager on mutual consent terms. This came after only managing one win in the first 9 games of the 2013-14 season. Assistant manager Keith Millen was named caretaker manager while Palace searched for a new manager. On November 23, 2013, former Stoke City FC boss Tony Pulis was confirmed as the new manager of Crystal Palace. As of April 19, 2014, Crystal Palace are mathematically safe from relegation from the Premier League for the first time in 5 attempts. When Crystal Palace were founded in 1905, they turned to one of the biggest clubs in the country at the time, Aston Villa, to seek advice. Villa helped the club in a number of ways, not least by donating their kit. As a result, Palace's colours were originally claret and blue shirts paired with white shorts, socks tending to be claret. They kept to this formula fairly consistently until 1938. The 1937 Euro 38 strip saw them try vertical stripes of claret and blue on the jersey rather than the claret body and blue sleeves, but then in 1938 they abandoned the claret and blue and adopted white shirts and black shorts with matching socks. Although they returned to claret and blue from 1949 Euro 54, the 1955 season saw them return to white and black, now using claret and blue as trim. Variations on this theme lasted until 1963 when the club adopted the lucky away strip of yellow jersey as the home colours. 1964 saw them adopt an all-white strip modelled on Real Madrid, whom the club had played recently in a friendly, before they returned to claret and blue jerseys with white shorts in 1966. The club employed variations upon this theme up until Malcolm Allison's arrival as manager in 1973. Allison overhauled the club's image, adopting red and blue vertical stripes for colours and kit, inspired by Barcelona. The club have played in variations of red and blue ever since, bar the centenary season of 2005, which saw them deploy a version of their 1971 Euro 72 claret, blue and white kit. The club were relatively late in establishing a crest. Although the initials were embroidered onto the shirt from the 1935 Euro 36 season, a crest featuring the 4-section aid of the Crystal Palace did not appear until 1955. This crest disappeared from the shirt in 1964, and the team's name appeared embroidered on shirts in 1967 Euro 72. 1972 saw a round badge adopted with the club's initials and nickname the Glaziers before Allison changed this too. The nickname became the Eagles, inspired by Portuguese club Benfica, and the badge adopted an eagle holding a ball. This emblem remained until 1987 when the club married the eagle with the Crystal Palace 4-section aid, and although updated in 1996 and again in 2013, the crest retains these features. Since mid-2010, the club has made use of an American bald eagle, called Kayla, as the club mascot, with the bird flying from one end of the stadium to the other at every home game. Stadium. In 1905, the owners of the FA Cup final venue, the Crystal Palace Company, wanted a professional club to play there and tap into the crowd potential of the area. A new club, Crystal Palace F.C., was formed to use the ground. When World War I broke out, the palace and grounds were seized by the military, and in 1915 the club were forced to move by the Admiralty. They found a temporary base at the Herne Hill Velodrome. Although other clubs had offered the use of their ground to Palace, the club felt it best to remain as close to their natural catchment area as possible. When Croydon Common War wound up in 1917, the club took over their old stadium at the Nest, but in 1919 they began the purchase of the land on which they would build Selhurst Park, their current home. Archibald Leitch, the renowned stadium architect, was employed to draw up plans, and the club constructed and completed the ground in time for the 1924 Euro 25 season. It remained relatively unchanged, with only the introduction of floodlights and maintenance and updating until 1969 when the Arthur Waite stand was constructed. The main stand became all-seater in 1979 and more work followed in the 1980s when the White Horse Lane end was redeveloped to allow for a Sainsbury's supermarket, club offices and a club shop. The Arthur Waite stand became all-seater in 1990, and in 1994 the Holmesdale Terrace was redeveloped, replaced with a two-tier stand. Selhurst's attendance record was set in 1979, with an official total of 51,482. After all the redevelopments to the ground and safety requirements due to the Taylor Report, the ground's current capacity is 26,309. Proposals were put forward to move the club back to the Crystal Palace National Stadium in 2010, but after the club gained promotion to the Premier League in 2013 there has been a renewed focus on redeveloping their current home into a 40,000-seater stadium. Support base: Crystal Palace have a fan base drawn predominantly from the local area which draws on South London, Kent and Surrey. The club's original home, the Crystal Palace, was in the boundary of Kent, while Selhurst Park was within Surrey's borders until the London Government Act 1963 saw Greater London encompass Croydon. The fans have established at least two other supporters groups. The Palace Independent Supporters Association was set up to raise supporter concerns with the club, while the Crystal Palace Supporters Trust was originally established to enable fans to purchase the club during the administration of 2000. The trust remained in existence, and now lists one of its aims as building a new state-of-the-art training ground to lease to the club. A number of fanzines have been produced by the fans over the years. Eagle Eye launched in 1987 and ran until 1994, with a number of contributors launching the replacement Palace Echo in 1995, running until 2007. The Eastern Eagles, So Glad You're Mine and One More Point were also published by fans in the 1990s. When One More Point ceased publication, 5-Year Plan launched in its place, and maintains an online presence. Supporters also congregate on two internet forums, the BBS and Homesdale.net, which the club uses channels to communicate with fans. Being a London club means they compete against a number of other local clubs for the attention of supporters, but the club does have a recognisably large catchment area of 900,000. When the new owners took control of the club in 2010, they sought the fans' input into future decisions. They consulted on a new badge design, and when their chosen designs were rejected the club instead opted for a design based on a fan's idea from an internet forum. The club are also strengthening their ties with the local community, and through the Crystal Palace FC Foundation they work with local London boroughs of Croydon, Bromley and Sutton to provide sports and educational programmes. Through this work the club hope to develop their supporter base and geographical base. The Foundation's work was recognised by the Football League in August 2009 with their Silver Standard Community Scheme Award. The club also maintains a healthy celebrity support. Kevin Day and Joe Brand host an annual comedy night for Comic Relief and the Palace Academy, and the club also count fellow comedians Eddie Izzard, Harry Enfield, Sean Hughes, Mark Steele, Ronnie Corbett and Roy Hudd amongst their fans. Men Behaving Badly star Neil Morrissey developed Palace Ale, a beer on sale in the ground, while actor Bill Nighy is patron of the CPSCC, a Crystal Palace-based charity. Two of the stars of The In-Betweeners, James Buckley and Simon Bird, are also Palace fans. Smooth radio DJ David Kid Jensen is chairman of the Crystal Palace Vice Presidents Club and acted as spokesman for the CPFC 2010 consortium during their takeover bid for the club. Also, renowned heavy metal journalist Dave Ling is a passionate follower. Actor, writer and producer John Salthouse was on the books of Crystal Palace from 1968 to 1970, and was also a mascot for the club as a child. He incorporated the club into his role as Tony in Abigail's Party. He was under the name of John Lewis at Palace. BBC television newsreader, Susanna Reid revealed her love of Palace while taking part in Strictly Come Dancing, visiting Selhurst Park for inspiration. Rebecca Lowe, currently the host of Premier League coverage for NBC Sports, is also a supporter, as mentioned in an interview on the Men in Blazers podcast. Even Hollywood star Liam Neeson is said to be a Crystal Palace, as mentioned in ex-chairman Simon Jordan's autobiography, where he explains how he gave him tickets to a match and how the actor's friend introduced him to the club when he moved to London from Ireland. Rivalries. Because of their location in the capital, Crystal Palace are involved in a number of local derbies, mostly across South London. Their most prominent are with Brighton and Hove Albion and Millwall, with a smaller rivalry enjoyed with former tenants Charlton. The club's rivalry with Brighton, known as the M23 Derby, did not develop until Palace's relegation to the third division in 1974, reaching its height when the two teams were drawn together in the first round of the 1976 Euro 77 FA Cup. The game went to 2 replays, but the controversy was based on referee Ron Shally ordering a successful Brighton penalty be retaken because of Palace player encroachment. The retake was saved, Palace won the game 1-0 and a fierce rivalry was born. Ownership. Due to the Football League not wishing the owners of the FA Cup final to also own a team, a separate company was established to found and own the team. The first chairman, Sidney Bourne, was found by club secretary Edmund Goodman after he had examined records of FA Cup final ticket purchases. Goodman noted his name as one that had bought a number of tickets every year, and so he met with Bourne and found him very agreeable to the idea of the new club. Bourne was invited onto the board of directors and elected chairman at the club's first ever meeting. Bourne remained chairman until his death in 1930. Arthur Waite established a consortium of 7 businessmen to purchase the club in 1949, and initially they rotated the chairmanship. In 1958 Waite became the chairman, before being replaced by Raymond Dwyer in 1972. Dwyer's ownership lasted until January 26, 1981, when property developer Ron Noadis and his small consortium took control of the club. Noadis eventually sold the club to Mark Goldberg on 5 June 1998, becoming the second longest-serving chairman behind Sidney Bourne. Goldberg's tenure of the club was not a success and the club entered administration in March 1999. Although the fans established a group, the Crystal Palace Supporters Trust, in a bid to gain control of the club, millionaire Simon Jordan negotiated a deal with creditors and the administrator, and a new company, CPFC 2000, took control. This company entered administration in January 2010, leaving administration in June of that year after a takeover by a consortium of 4 wealthy fans, CPFC 2010. Crystal Palace FC is currently owned by CPFC 2010 Limited, a private limited company registered at Company House. CPFC 2010 was established by a consortium of 4 businessmen, Steve Parish, Martin Long, Stephen Browett and Jeremy Hosking in 2010, each owning a 25% share of the company. The 4 successfully negotiated a takeover with the administrator Brendan Guilfoyle, and a company voluntary arrangement was formally accepted by company creditors on August 20, 2010. CPFC 2010 also purchased the ground from Lloyds Bank after a demonstration by fans put pressure on the bank to agree terms. Statistics and records. Jim Cannon holds the record for Crystal Palace appearances, having played 660 first-team matches between 1973 and 1988. He also holds the record for most league appearances, making 571. Cannon joined the club as a trainee, and of his appearances only 4 of them were made as a substitute. His first appearance was made aged 19. Scoring in a home win against Chelsea on March 31, 1973. Cannon's last game was on May 7, 1988, a home win against Manchester City. Peter Simpson holds the record for the most goals scored in a season, 54 in the 1930 Euro 31 season in Division 3. Simpson, who signed for the club from Kettering Town, is also the top scorer over a career Euro 165 between 1929 and 1935. He died in 1974. Aki Riolahti holds the club record for most international caps, with 36 appearances for Finland while at Palace. Crystal Palace hold a number of records and achievements. They are one of a small group of clubs to have won a Football League division at the first time of asking, winning the 3rd division in 1920 Euro 21. Their average league attendance of 19,092 achieved in the 1960 Euro 61 season and the attendance of 37,774 for the Good Friday game at Selhurst Park between Palace and Millwall the same season are 4th division attendance records. The club's widest victory margin in the league was their 9-0 win against Barrow in Division 4 in 1959, while their heaviest defeat in the league was by the same scoreline, 9-0, against Liverpool in 1989 in Division 1. Palace's record home attendance is 51,482 for a Division 2 match against Burnley, achieved on May 11, 1979. With the introduction of regulations enforcing all-seater stadiums, it is unlikely that this record will be beaten in the foreseeable future. The highest transfer fee received for a Palace player is £15 a million, from Manchester United for Wilfried Zaha in January 2013, while the most spent by the club on a player was the signing of Dwight Gale for £4.5 million from Peterborough United FC. The club's highest league finish was third in the Football League First Division, now the Premiership, in 1990, Euro 91, achieved under the management of Steve Coppell. The club were runners-up in the FA Cup in 1990 and have also reached the semi-final twice. In 1991 they won the full Members' Cup, and they have reached the semi-finals of the League Cup 4 times, most recently in 2012. Palace remain the only team ever to be relegated from the Premier League, even though they finished fourth from bottom. In the 1994-1995 season, the Premier League was reduced from 22 teams down to the current standard of 20. Palace also hold the record for relegations from the Premier League with a total of 4. They also hold the record for most playoff wins resulting in promotion to the Premier League, amassing 4 playoff victories. They also hold the record for winning promotion at 4 different locations. Shirt sponsors, players. First team squad, as of April 18, 2014. Note: flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Reserve squad. Note: flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Out on loan. Note: flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Notable former players. Past players who are the subjects of Wikipedia articles can be found here. Crystal Palace Centenary 11. To celebrate Crystal Palace's centenary in 2005, the club asked Palace fans to vote for a Centenary 11 from a short list of 10 players per position, provided by the club. Nigel Martyn, Paul Hinshelwood, Chris Coleman, Jim Cannon, Kenny Sansom, John Salako, Jeff Thomas, Andy Gray, Attilio Lombardo, Andrew Johnson, Ian Wright, Player of the Year, Club Staff, Managers. As of match played May 11, 2014. Not including caretaker managers. All competitive matches are counted. Honours. Crystal Palace's honours and achievements include the following. League, First Division 1, 3rd place, 1990 Euro 91. Second Division, Champions, 1978 Euro 79, 1993 Euro 94, Runners-up, 1968 Euro 69, Playoff winners, 1988 Euro 89, 1996 Euro 97, 2003 Euro 04, 2012 Euro 13, Runners-up, 1995 Euro 96. Third Division, Champions, 1920 Euro 21, Runners-up, 1963 Euro 64. Third Division South, Runners-up, 1928 Euro 29, 1930 Euro 31, 1938 Euro 39. Fourth Division, Runners-up, 1960 Euro 61. Southern Football League Division 1, Runners-up, 1913 Euro 14. Southern Football League Division 2, Champions, 1905 Euro 06. Cup, FA Cup, Finalists, 1990. Full Members' Cup winners, 1990 Euro 91. London Challenge Cup winners, 1912 Euro 13, 1913 Euro 14, 1920 Euro 21. In popular culture, in the 1999 Michael Winterbottom film Wonderland, the scenes of the character Dan and his son at a football match were filmed at Selhurst Park, the ground of Crystal Palace in a 1-1 draw against Birmingham City on February 6, 1999. In the Might Lee play Abigail's Party, the character Tony mentions that he used to play professionally for Crystal Palace but it didn't work out, something actor John Salthouse brought to the character in rehearsals based on his own life. Salthouse also incorporated the club into the children's television series he wrote, Hero to Zero, in which the father of the main character once played for Palace reserves. In the first series of Only Fools and Horses, a Crystal Palace scarf could be seen on the coat rack, placed there by producer Ray Butt. Headmaster Keith Blackwell, who played Crystal Palace mascot Pete the Eagle in the late 90s, fronted a series of Coca-Cola advertisements in 1996. Blackwell spoke about his role and the embarrassments it brought to his family, and clips of him in costume were used in the campaign. Crystal Palace Ladies. Crystal Palace Ladies is the women's football club affiliated to Crystal Palace, founded in 1992. They are managed by Ian Jackson. Crystal Palace F.C compete in the Women's South East Combination League, in the third tier of English women's football. They play their home games at the Crystal Palace National Sports Centre, Crystal Palace, London. Notes. References. Bibliography, King, Ian. Crystal Palace, The Complete Record 1905 Euro 2011. Derby Books Publishing Company Limited. ISBN A978-1-78091-221-9. Matthews, Tony. We All Follow the Palace. Yuma, 1998. ISBN 1-872204-55-4. Citations. Further reading, The Crystal Palace Story by Roy Pesquet, published by Roy Pesquet Publishing Limited, 100 Years of Crystal Palace Football Club by Reverend Nigel Sands, published by the History Press Limited. ISBN 978-0-7524-3608-1. Crystal Palace Football Club by Reverend Nigel Sands, published by NPI Media Group. ISBN 978-0-7524-1544-4. Classic Matches, Crystal Palace FC by Reverend Nigel Sands, published by the History Press Limited. ISBN 978-0-7524-2733-1. Crystal Palace Miscellany by Neil McSteen, published by Legends Publishing. ISBN 978-1-905411-55-9. External links. Crystal Palace FC. On BBC Sport, Club News. Euro recent results. Euro upcoming fixtures. Euro club statistics, official website, CPFC BBS Online Fans Forum, Palace Radio 1278 AM.